On the latest episode of the PCT podcast, we are delighted to be joined by a former professional footballer who made over 500 professional appearances in his career. Now continuing his career as a coach, allow me to welcome today's guest, Dean Whitehead. Hello, Dean. Thank you for taking the time for joining us today. How are you?
Yeah, I'm okay, thank you. Glad to be on here and hopefully share some of my experiences.
I'm sure there's going to be some real gold dust and some gems for any of our listeners today. And before I wanted to sort of get started on your career to date and experiences in what is the wonderful world of football, can I start by asking you to let our listeners know what it is you're up to at the minute?
Yeah, so obviously I previously, 3 months ago, was assistant manager at Shrewsbury, and unfortunately the manager lost his job, and so now this is probably the first time in maybe 21 years that I've had a little bit of time away from football a little bit, because as soon as I signed professional at 17, I went all the way to 36, and then made the transition to coach straight away. No real rest or reflection or anything, roll straight into it. And this has been a good time to kind of reflect on my coaching journey, not so much my playing, but more my coaching, and how, what we did well, and what we could have improved on, and what kind of was our downfall in the end, and try and learn from them, and come out the other end a stronger and better coach.
I mean, for those that are involved in football will know the daily, weekly and monthly rigors of the game, and that sounds like quite an intense period. Are you enjoying this time now to just sort of take a step back and enjoy a break from the game?
Yeah, I was for probably a couple of months, but that's enough now. I'm ready and refreshed, and focused on the next opportunity that will come along for me. I've been obsessed with football since I was a small boy, and that's just grown now into a coaching angle, which is completely different to playing. But look, I'm looking forward to getting back in now, and I feel refreshed, recharged, and ready to go now.
Fantastic. And before we obviously get started onto that coaching pathway, let's go right back. When and how did you first get involved with football, Dean? When was it you started playing?
I think I've always kicked the ball around since I was able to walk, really. And that's up against the wall, that's in the garden, that's with my brother, friends. I mean, the world's completely changed now. I used to go out and go over the field and play football at a really young age, but I'm not sure I'd almost let that with my kids today, with how the world is. But we were able to back in what was it, 1990? Seem really old, but that's basically how and my passion and enthusiasm for it just grew and grew. I watched a lot on the TV, watched a lot of football, and didn't understand it too much then, but I just loved the atmosphere and the thrill of the game, really.
So growing up, when you did start out on your pathway in terms of playing for a team, were you aware of any interest from professional clubs, or were you sort of oblivious to that?
I played for my local team, Abingdon, and then I scored lots of goals, and you play for your Vale of the White Horse, which was my club, and then you play for the county teams, and people do talk, and you're in the papers for scoring goals, and there was a little bit when I was getting into sort of 9s, 10s, 11s, 12s that I'd England trials, at Man United, but it wasn't something that I was overly interested in, really. I was just interested in playing football, enjoying it with my friends, and playing for my local team, really, Oxford United, which was it was my local club, and that was something that I wanted to do. I didn't really want to do anything else at the time. I just wanted to enjoy my football and live at home and live an easy life, really.
You mentioned there you played for your local side, Abingdon Town. Was this sort of 14, 15, 16 that you were playing there before Oxford came along?
No, this was even before that. This was probably from under 7s, 8s, 9s, 10s, 11s. I'd be playing for Abingdon on maybe I think it was a Saturday, and then I'd play for the Oxford School of Excellence on the Sunday. Sometimes from the county sides in the week, and I did that all along until I could no longer combine the two. I'd say obviously when you get to a certain age, they don't allow you to play for your local team. So I did that all the way as far as I could, and just played as many football games as I could really.
And do you feel that obviously during that time that it helped that you were able to play a lot of games with your friends and obviously have more of that social setting in terms of your development as a player?
Yeah, I think so. I think I love training. I love all the stuff that comes with it. But I think playing football as a young kid, put 2 goals together, whether that's a proper goal, whether that's jumpers for goalpost, whatever it is. I think playing football and enjoying it with your friends and becoming obviously more social with people, which is obviously good for the kids at my age at the time. And nowadays it's a big part of growing up and socializing and be able to communicate and have relationships with people.
When you got your apprenticeship with Oxford, was there all your eggs in one basket of becoming a professional footballer, or was the other avenues alongside that in terms of studying that you took up?
Probably all eggs in one basket, and that's not something that I'm proud of saying really, because education is so important for young people, young footballers who aspire to be professionals, but it doesn't happen for lots and lots of kids. And what I would say is for sure is make sure you fully engage in your education, getting some sort of grades that you need is really, really important. Yes, football is great, but 1, it doesn't last forever, and 2, it's very, very difficult to stay in for a long amount of years. And so education, I would say, was vitally important.
So the apprenticeship soon followed with Oxford United. How did that come about, and how were you feeling at that point that you were signing these terms?
Obviously, my local team really excited. There was only 3 of us that got selected at the time from quite a big group. We knew the year above us had a big group, so we knew there wouldn't be too many from my age group to get the YTS. But I was one of the 3, and really, really excited. Daunting challenge really, going into an environment that I wasn't a real outgoing person. I wasn't one to just bowl into a changing room and create relationships straight away. Now I was more withdrawn, more take time to work people out, didn't give much away, and that was a real big challenge to start with. But the longer I went on, the more respect I got from the group.
How can that feel then, as a young lad who has then been pushed up in and around the first team? How can that feel going to that some would say cutthroat environment whilst still effectively learning your trade as a young footballer?
Yeah, it was difficult. I was a late developer as well, and it's not easy to be thrusted into a highly charged environment of professional people, and I seem to find some way to get around it, but it's a challenge that I'm very proud that I managed to overcome that, because I could have gone 1 or 2 ways in that situation. I could have gone in my shower or took the challenge head on, and that's what I ended up doing.
A first team debut in December '99 soon followed against Luton Town. How did you feel prior to the game and in the run up to that game? Was the nerves? Were you aware that you were going to be playing, or was it just sort of again thrust on you and it was a challenge that you had to overcome?
Yeah, I think the squad goes up, a day before the game, and you don't really get told. You read the list of names, and all of a sudden I'm on it. Didn't expect to be. So it was a moment that was almost a little bit surreal at the time. Didn't know if I was ready. I must have done something right. But it was a proud time really, and a time for me to really kick on and right, this is what I've worked all these years for, and the time is now, and it was time to almost showcase myself a little bit and take my first step into the real game.
Was there nerves as you stepped onto the pitch?
Of course. I think nerves are good. I get nervous, a lot of the time, and I feed off that, and that's, I think that you can really gain some positive energy from that, and as long as it doesn't go too far, I think nerves are normal, and I certainly had those butterflies in the stomach and all the usual stuff, and but as soon as you get on the pitch and you get your first touch, it's it just became normal to me in the end, really.
Pro terms were signed not long later, and more appearances came under the stewardship of Dennis Smith. How did you feel that your progression had gone to this point? And is there anything that sticks in your mind that sort of made you push on and kick on from when you signed pro terms?
I think when you sign pro terms, you automatically think, okay, that's great. I've made it almost, and that is only the start. That is literally the start of a really, really hard, tough, demanding journey. If some players once they sign the first one, that it's almost job done. But that was the start of a real long, tough path. And Dennis was great with me. Dennis Smith gave me plenty of opportunities to play, but I still felt at the time that I could have played more. I felt like I could have. I felt like I was good enough to. But also realising I'm a young player. I'm developing. I'm still understanding the game, and sometimes being out of the team is, it can almost make you a better player sometimes. And that's how he kind of played it. When I didn't play, he kind of tell me the reasons why, and to make sure that I watched the game and watched certain players, and learn. You don't always have to be on the pitch to be learning.
So you continued your development with Oxford over the next 5 seasons, and in 2004, as your contract ran down, what were your thoughts on the next stage of your career, and were there offers on the table to move away, or were you keen to stay and continue your development with the club?
I think the season that I ended up running my contract out, I decided that I didn't tell anybody. I made sure that I kept my personal opinions of what I want to do to myself, and I decided that I wasn't going to contract. I wasn't going to, whether I knew they'd offer me one, and I know it was risky at the time with injuries and things that can happen. That's fine, but I felt that at the time it was a challenge for me, that I wanted to come out of my comfort zone. I wanted to challenge myself and almost see how far I can go and see what I can achieve, and so that shy, introverted almost character going into the dressing room in the first instance when I signed pro, kind of spun around a little bit, and all of a sudden I'm making my own decisions. I'm trying to grow up. I'm trying to really challenge myself in getting away from home to start with, and obviously there has to be offers on the table to do that. And come towards the end of the season, Graham Ricks was in charge. He offered me a brilliant contract. He was great with me. He offered me probably one of the biggest contracts a young player could get offered, a long-term contract. I could have signed it, could have been living at home, could have been in comfort zone, really, really easy life, 10 minutes up the road. But I didn't want that. I wanted to really test myself, really challenge myself. And, I certainly got that challenge in Sunderland.
In June 2004, the move into Sunderland on a free transfer. I just wanted you to elaborate a little bit more on that decision, Dean, because you mentioned there you could sit in your comfort zone and play 10 minutes from home and almost be a comfortable player. But to move away from the Midlands and Oxford to the Northeast, were there any reservations about moving from home? And ultimately, it was a bit of a, would you say it was a calculated risk to take at that age?
Oh, there was loads of reservations, loads of risk. It was a difficult time. I decided that's what I wanted to do, and all of a sudden I had the opportunity to do it, and it's like, now I've got what I wanted. Am I capable of going through with it and doing it? So obviously I decided to. Obviously my parents weren't overly keen on me doing it, because parents being parents, is this around the corner, you're playing for your local team, you're a local hero, that sort of stuff I didn't really care about. Yes, I respect the club, of course, but I'm going to a proper football club that's just come down from the Premier League, international manager in Mick McCarthy, and so I decided to go to the Northeast. Long way away. First time ever really been away from home. Really tough journey up there, to be honest. Whether I was thinking whether have I made the right decision? Is this what I want? I could just be at home, know everybody. But ultimately, my obsession for football and for trying to achieve as much as you can overrode all the negatives that I was thinking. And it didn't start great. I come on as sub the first game. The second game wasn't involved, and I'd be at home and my wife come up with me, so it's just me and her, and we'd sit in the house sometimes and cry and think, what are we doing? Why have we done this? Really difficult time. And I got into the team probably 2-3 weeks later, and they never come out of it. So and this, the journey continued, and we ended up winning the title that year, and I picked up some nice awards.
So not a bad risk, because the reward was massive. As you say, you were promoted to the Premier League with Sunderland. How did you find the demands of the game, moving to a team playing in the Championship, and possibly the expectations of such a big club like Sunderland needing or wanting to get back into the Premier League?
Yeah, I think that's the biggest one. All of a sudden, you're going from a small club now you're at a Premier League club, 40, 50,000. The higher expectations of the club, of the supporters. That comes with more pressure. There's more pressure on you as a group of players. There's better quality of player. The game's quicker. People think quicker. People do things quicker. And look, I was going about. I had no idea. I knew it was a big club. I knew it was the passionate fans that up in the Northeast. But the demands of the game, they completely changed, and I had to be. I was a fit lad anyway, but I had to be much fitter, because I wasn't technically brilliant. I wasn't one of those players, But what I gave in work ethic and attitude and work rate, gained a lot of respect within the club and the squad. So, yeah, I think huge demands on individuals, and then obviously you come together.
Did you ever envisage playing in the Premier League?
I always dreamed of playing in the Premier League. Would I have envisaged it? Possibly not. But I always had a inner self-confidence and inner belief that I'd certainly have a go. I'd try. I'd give it my best shot. And it's something I'm really, really happy to achieve the many years I did play in the Premier League.
The year you won promotion, you were also voted as Players Player of the Year. Now, surely that has to be the highest accolade you can receive as a player.
Yeah, especially when you've had a successful season. If you've had a successful season as a team and you win the title, that means a lot of players are doing a lot of things right. In terms of individuals, and it was really nice. I mean, they're great awards, aren't they? When you work and you spend more time with the players than you do with your wife and your family. So, for them to pick you out and sing you out as their best player, then it's really nice. But then you have to go and prove yourself again the following year.
Not as planned, but relegation back to the Championship soon followed. How does that impact you, not only as a player, but also a club, and how can relegation sort of linger?
Oh, it most certainly can, because when you get relegated from the Premier League, we was a young group going into the Premier League at the time. We didn't have a lot of experience amongst us. There was a few, but there wasn't too many. And you almost get into the, we had a habit of winning in the Championship. We had a momentum, and then all of a sudden it's flipped on its head. Now we have the losing mentality. Now we have the momentum of losing, finding ways to lose. And it's very, very difficult to get yourself out of that rut. And you see it a lot. You see teams who get relegated who don't start too great, the following season. And it's not. I don't think it's a mentality thing. I don't think it's a physical or tactical or whatever you might call it. It's just a group of players, trying to swing that the pendulum the other way a little bit, and sometimes that takes a little bit of time, and that certainly happened for us at the start of the that following season, because we got off to I think we played. No manager at the time, and then that changed.
In the 2006-2007 season, you were named captain of the club under the stewardship of Roy Keane. That must have been a pretty proud and surreal moment in your career.
Yeah, of course. You go through lots of coaches, lots of managers, and we come across one that won that many Premier League titles, European titles, and they got trophies coming out of his ears, and an international player that was one of the world's best in his position, in my opinion. And all of a sudden he's he gives you the armband, and you almost have to try and get to the standards that he expects, and that's probably higher than maybe that I could reach, but you have to try, and you have to practice and try and get to those levels. And if you don't, then you don't. But you certainly, if you are having a go and understanding and working towards how he wants you to, not too much of a problem. He's quite a calm guy, contrary to what you might come across on Sky Sports and stuff. He's a man that's got a huge aura, a huge ego about him, and rightly so, because he's been at the top of the game for so long. And proud moment, and you know, we had a lot of experienced players in the dressing room that almost ran that for me really, and I just stuck the armband on and walked out in front, and just cracked on really.
There'd been offers for your services during your time with Sunderland before the move to Stoke came. How can interest like that affect a player?
Yeah, I think it can. But you know, we have to deal with lots of speculation, lots of paper talk, lots of criticism, and sometimes you have to take it with a pinch of salt. And until people say otherwise, the club or your agent, then you just kind of continue. But I remember at the time, coming to the end of the Sunderland career, I think it was time for me to go. It was time. I think the club were probably happy for me to go in the end. I can remember the last game at Bolton. We played Bolton. I think it was at home, and I got booed every time I touched the ball. And you know, I'd had a successful time there, and you know that it was a little bit disappointing. But I think you know they wanted a bit of freshness, something different. And you know they pay their money. They can criticise and sing songs about what they want. And you know it was just a little bit put a little bit of a damper on it really. And but you know I had good times there, and you know I moved on to Stoke in the end, and I think both clubs were happy.
As you mentioned there, you joined Stoke in the summer of 2009 and stated that the team spirit was a factor in your move to the club. What was it that made you decide to move from the club that you captained to Premier League sort of newcomers Stoke? Was the teammates there or previous teammates there who sold the club to you?
I think there was a couple of. I think Liam Lawrence was there at the time that you know he moved a little bit before me, but like I said, it wasn't a difficult move for me because you know I felt my time was up at Sunderland. You know, you have that feeling in your gut, and you're feeling that you know it was time, and Stoke was the perfect club for me. You know, it's a place where you know I found my home, quite you know, just up the road from Stoke now, and had my kids, and you know, had wonderful times there. We were a great bunch of lads, and we achieved what we achieved there was under Tony was you know remarkable. And yes, it was another great chapter in my career. You
went on to make over 100 appearances for the club, and the 100th appearance came in a 2-1 victory in the Europa League against Maccabi Tel Aviv. So you marked the occasion with a goal as well. So how meteoric was that club's progression from, as you say, Premier League newcomers to the Europa League, and how did you enjoy your time there?
Yeah, no, like I say, I love my time there. Like I say, a set of lads that from when I first joined, yes, we added quality as we went along, but when I first joined, it was a bunch of lads that you know would give their all, would give everything for each other, for themselves, for the manager, and we'd find ways to win football matches. And going from a team that had just been promoted to now Europa League, you know, followed by FA Cup final, you know, comfortable finishes in the top half of the Premier League, which isn't easy for anybody. And you know, we had that, you know, that mentality that you know we'll run through brick walls for each other and the manager, and yeah, that's priceless. I think if you can gain that togetherness.
4 years at Stoke came to an end when the club ultimately released you at the end of the 2012-13 season. What sort of emotions can you go through as a player when your contract ends and you are released? I mean, you mentioned you let your contract run down at Oxford. How did it feel now knowing that you were not getting a deal, and how could that affect you as a player?
Yeah, it's you know it's a different situation this time. You know, all of a sudden it's coming to the end of my 4 years there. We had a great time, and you know the lads brilliant all together, and you know it was really disappointing to leave, but I understood it. You know, I'm probably what am I now, 30 maybe. I think I'm 30 at this point. And, the club's trying to go again and getting some younger players. I think it was Steven Zonzi come in, ended up going to Seville and Roma, really top player. So, it was disappointed. I don't think it affects you. I think you take that journey that you've been on as a positive, and then you go into the next one as excited as you were previously, and ready to achieve more success.
A move back up north to Middlesbrough came under Tony Mowbray, and he was quoted as saying that your experience of promotion from the Championship was key to the signing. Does that then come with an added pressure with the move and heightened expectations?
Maybe. I think I'm an experienced player. I've got out of the league a couple of times before that, and it didn't kind of help Tony at the beginning, because he didn't last very long. But I think when I went to Middlesbrough, I in the last game I played for Stoke at Southampton, I tweaked my soleus in my just below my calf and between my Achilles, and I had to rest it over the summer. And to be honest, I didn't go back to Middlesbrough in the best of shape the best shape I could do, and I was playing a little bit of catch up because I couldn't do my off-season program, and I wanted to make sure that I was right. But by the time I was up and running, we started poorly, and Tony obviously paid the price for that, and then we got Aitor Karanka in, so things changed a little bit from there on.
You spent 2 years at Middlesbrough before moving to Huddersfield. At this point in your career, are you starting to plan for life after football?
I think I started to do that when Aitor come in at Middlesbrough. He's a great guy. I speak to him even now, and he got me to make sure I started my badges then, and I did that, and he gave me advice on anything that I wanted. He was really, really influential and important into me starting such an early age. I knew I wanted to go into coaching, but I didn't know when I wanted to start doing my badges, and because it takes a little bit of time and lots of work to go over it, because I was still concentrated on and focused on my own performances and my own fitness and concentration off the pitch.
So as you start that journey on your coaching badges, do you start to see the game differently now that you're sort of going into the other side of the game?
Yeah, I think so. I think as a player, I can only speak personally, but I was only concentrated on myself, making sure my performance levels were right. Once they were, then I could start helping others in terms of on the pitch. And when I'm watching games, I just watch games for the. You don't really take much in when you watch it. When you're just chilling out and you're watching the game go on in the background or whatever. But now all of a sudden, that's changed, and you're looking at different systems, different formations, how teams press, how teams build up, and it's really it's something that's fascinates me, the amount of different ways there are to play the game. Yes, we love the way Pep does it, and I think he's unbelievable the way that he. You think you've cracked it, and then he finds another way, and then he finds another way, and all those foreign coaches that have come into the game now, they're bringing so much to the English game, but hopefully there's still room for us English coaches to find a pathway as well.
You took your first role at Huddersfield Town's under-17 side. How did your first game as a manager compare to your first game as a player?
Well, I won my first game as a player, and I lost quite heavily as the first coach. So we lost 4-1 to Lincoln away, and it was something that all of a sudden, when I was playing, I was that young boy in a dressing room, didn't say a word, sat in the corner. All of a sudden now I'm the one they're all looking at. I'm the one that they're looking at for answers for how do we do this? How do we do that? What happens if this happens? And I'm now the man that, that answers it. And, it was good. I enjoyed it. And I had plenty more good experiences, after that bad start.
Would you say there was a big learning experience undertaken there in your first sort of managerial role?
Yeah, I think so. I think you learn lots all the time. Very, very quickly, you get to know how people work, how they take on information, how they act, how they communicate, what sort of characters they are, what's their background. I think this is all really, really important stuff for a coach going into a team, learning how to deal with different types of characters and give them leadership, give them direction on what you want, and deliver those messages very clearly, and and keep reinforcing them, and that's something that I learned quite quickly. I was only with the 17s for 3 months, and I moved on to the 19s and the B team, and all of a sudden you're getting older players, you're getting better players, and they come up with more difficult questions they ask you, and you have to make sure you're ready, and you answer them. And I find the most challenging thing, actually, I don't know how you find it as a coach, is sometimes when, especially in academy level, half times are interesting for me, and on how people deal with the halftime situation. I tend to give myself a couple of minutes to think things through, and then decide what I'm going to deliver to them. And that's the biggest challenge I found, especially in the first couple of 3 or 4 games. Like I say, because I'm used to normally listening. Now all of a sudden I have to come up with the halftime talk, and that I found that was probably the most challenging thing for me at the time.
Yeah, I think personally for me, Dean, it's, do you say too much? Do you say too little? It's getting the right and with the right detail for them, because ultimately that can be your make or break. And I think for me personally, I work mainly the younger ages. It's more a case of sort of individual and unit tweaks.
Okay.
And I'm fortunate in my day job to work in an education program with 16 to 18 year olds. Not at the level of obviously Huddersfield, but again, you don't want to buffer them too much. You want to try and simplify the game for them so that they can go out and enjoy it, but also make a change. And I think, like you say there, the fine lines between too much or too little is tough to get right.
Yeah, it is. And hopefully I've got the balance right now. And I think it does depend what age group you're at, whether you go into tactically, not so much obviously until they get to a certain age, I would imagine. And obviously correcting what you feel's gone wrong, I suppose.
In 2009, I'm sorry.
Sorry, no, sorry, Karen.
I was saying in 2019, you joined Sam Ricketts' backroom staff at Shrewsbury. How did that move come about?
So obviously, he was one of the apprentices that was in my same age group when I signed YTS at Oxford. So I've known him for many years. Then we took different paths. I obviously stayed a little bit longer at Oxford and then moved on to Sunderland, and he moved down the footballing pyramid, as you say, and then obviously worked his way back up through Swansea, through Bolton, through Wolves, through Hull, and he gave me a call one day, and obviously I was really, really enjoying my time at Huddersfield and working with some real talented players, and 3 or 4, 5 of them had already made their debuts in the first team, so the process was working, And but I always had an inkling in the back of my mind that first team football was for me. I've been in that environment for all my career really, and it's sad to leave Huddersfield behind, and moved on to Shrewsbury, which was another culture shock in terms of the facilities, what sort of player you're working with, how many staff members there are actually to work. Huddersfield, we had lots and lots of staff. I turned up there, and there's barely any. So there's probably one physio. We had one analyst intern. We had one masseur, one goalkeeping coach, one sports science, and a chef and kit man, and that was it. And that was us. And we have to work with that, and high pressure environment in terms of I think at the time Sam was under a little bit of pressure to win games, and like it is in any football club at first team level. It's not like academy where you can go and develop, you can make mistakes, that's fine. But now your jobs are on the line, and it's tough when you got so much demands on you and in such little facility, really.
You were later promoted to assistant manager, and one thing I'm interested in is how did your role and sort of duties change from being part of the staff to now assistant manager? Was there more pressure that came with that?
Yeah, I think so. I think as a first team coach, you don't have as much. Yes, you have a say, of course. Set pieces were designated to me at the time, so I'd make sure I studied the opposition for set plays, where they were weak, and flipped it over. How could we and do it, and likewise for them, where are they strong, or how do they attack the ball? Where should we put our main headers of the ball when defending? And obviously, when you go to assistant manager, you then come up with the game plan together. For us, the set pieces together. So all of a sudden, they're going from three. We went from a manager, assistant manager, first team coach, to just a manager and assistant manager now. Okay. So less staff, more work. We'd sit and watch 2 or 3 games. We'd go through it. We'd analyse it. We'd then come up with a game plan, and we'd get the set plays up. And it's all time consuming, and I think that's one thing that I'd definitely reflect on is time management. Time management in that part of the game when your time is limited. Organising your time, because obviously the manager had so many different other things that his phone was non-stop. Just so many different things, and you barely get time to worry about football, the actual tactics, the actual what's going on in the game. There's so many things. So that was kind of left not for me on my own, but you'd have to he'd bob in and bob out, and become definitely more pressure, because you're a little bit further up the line, I suppose.
Is there a role that you prefer, whether that be a coach, assistant, or is there aspirations to take the hot pot of being a manager?
I think of course. I think that's my end goal. I want to be the head coach. I want to be the manager. But I don't think that would change in terms of the way the way I do things. I love being a coach. I love being on the grass. I'd be very, if I was a head coach or a manager, I'd be very hands-on. I'd be on the grass all the time, working with the players, individually, collectively, units. So obviously I do want to be a head coach, but I understand that I need as much experience and just getting out coaching, every day is is where I want to be.
So you're currently studying the UEFA Pro license. How have you found the journey into coaching, Dean, and the demands that comes with the qualifications?
Yeah, I was lucky enough to get my A and B done before I retired at Huddersfield, and I fell into a club at the right time under the right manager in David Wagner. Gave me an unbelievable opportunity to shadow him for 6 months in a Premier League season, and understand what happens, what goes on in meetings, how they come up with a game plan, how they discuss the opposition, and what goes on in recruitment, how the morning meetings work in terms of who's fit, how much can they do, what shall we do, how do we structure it, how do we organize it, and that gave me a real leg up, real head start in coaching to start with. And in terms of the pro license, I think I'm now doing lots on leadership, lots on character traits and football trends, and all the long heavy stuff that you wouldn't necessarily look at, and understanding you as a character, and what you're good at, what you're not so good at, and where you need to improve.
What does the future hold for you now, Dean?
What does the future hold for me? Hopefully the future's kind. I've had my 2 months out now, and I'm just waiting for an opportunity to build my reputation as a coach, and hopefully some point along the journey be head coach somewhere, hopefully.
Fantastic. Before we head to our finishing, the quick fire question round, what advice would you give to any aspiring players or coaches?
I think players, I would say, always challenge yourself, believe in yourself, don't fear anybody, and work as hard as you can, and just be a good person, really.
Love that. Our quick fire question round. I'm not going to say it's infamous, because it's probably not, but it's a chance to get an insight into you in a quick fire way. So, who's the best manager or coach you've played under?
I think David Wagner, just because it was the German style, coming something different, and I'm a big fan of German football, and they got some top teams.
Best friend in football?
Got a couple really. Tommy Smith, obviously, he was a good friend of mine from Huddersfield. Mark Hudson as well. Obviously, Sam Ricketts is a good friend of mine that goes back years. So, there's a few.
Toughest opponent?
That's a bit unfair, because there's so many. So many when you talk about the Premier League, you've got Gerrard's, Lampard's, Yaya Touré's, De Bruyne's, Bale's, Ronaldo's, all of those. But I think one that sticks out for me, Luka Modric. I got sent off the day he megged me. Off you go, son. Back in the bath early, and I was probably glad to be in the bath there, to be fair, because I was getting the absolute run around from him. So I was quite happy in there.
I remember that game well. Best player played with?
Best player played with. I think there's a lot of players that people wouldn't probably associate with being best players, but offered so much to the group, to the team. When I talk about that, I talk about like Matty Everington, Johnny Walters, those type of players, Robert Oof, who just give you everything. Exactly what you're getting, and you wouldn't want to play against them. But I'll probably say from Stoke, I'll probably say the big man up top, just because of his all round, the way he can take the ball in. He's 6'7", but he's decent with his feet. Yeah. And just the character, he's just a top character, top bloke, funny, and he delivers the goods. And I'll always remember the goal against City. The stadium was absolutely bouncing, and good times. So Crouchy.
Yeah, superb. What's been your best moment in football to date?
My best moment. I don't know. Obviously, I've captained a big club, and won a couple of titles, championship titles, but I think playing in Europe, FA Cup final, they're big moments, and getting promoted to the Premier League at 35, I'd have said yes. I didn't play loads, but my impact in other ways, was, I felt as proud as I have with that than I did when I was, played 40, 45, 46 games. So, a collective one, really.
What's been your biggest wow moment? Anything that's really taken you back?
I think probably take football away. Probably, I'd probably say having my two boys. How good my wife was in terms of dealing with that, and I salute all women that have children, because they do an unbelievable job, and that for me at the time when I was having a good time at Stoke as well, come at a really great time for me.
Who's been the biggest role model or influence on your footballing career?
I think obviously my parents drove me around everywhere. Then obviously when I met my wife, our journey started, just before I went to Sunderland. So, three really big influences on my career, and lots of good coaches. Mickey Lewis, obviously, he passed away, not long ago, 2-3 days ago, and he was really my mentor at Oxford, and he really showed me the ropes, looked after me, and a huge influence on my early career.
Describe yourself in 3 words.
Honest, loyal, competitive.
And then our final one is there anybody you would recommend or like to hear on the podcast?
Who would I like to hear on the podcast? Have you had Crouchy on or anyone like that? Hoofy, you've had Hoofy on?
I'm not quite at those levels in terms of that, but I would love to get somebody like Crouchy or Hoofy on. But we've had Rory on. Rory's been on.
Rory on, yeah.
Danny Pugh's been on as well.
Okay. Andy Wilkinson?
I'm trying to push Dicko for that. So we've had Carl Dickinson on as well. Yeah, so I'm trying to drop Wilco in. So we'll see what we can do in terms of that. But you'll probably be pleased to know, mate, that's the end of the quick fire question round, and any sort of comfortableness. I just want to say a massive thank you, really, for taking the time to speak to us. The insights into your career and your coaching has been invaluable, not just for me, but for our listeners. And I'm pretty sure you'll find a way back into football soon. And we wish you all the best of it.
Lovely. Thank you. Thank you very much. Thanks, Sean.
Hello, we're Tile Central UK, local tile stockist here on Trentham Trade Park, Stanley Matthews Way. Our opening hours are 8 till 5 in the week and Saturdays till 12.
Thank you for listening. We hope you enjoy the content that we're trying to bring to you. Don't forget, new episodes will be released every Monday. You can find us on the iTunes Store, Spotify, and if you want to see the video, you can see it on our YouTube channel, PCT Football Coaching.